It's quite a moody day, and it's really fresh and clean after a downpour of rain last night. For those of you who were not on the Sunset Safari with Brent and Jamie, you need to be updated that there was a torrential storm with a lot of lightning and thunder that brought us some much needed rain. It did call the drive short, so apologies for that, but we've got no control over the weather, and when it is very wet and rainy, getting all of this equipment on these vehicles that gets the picture to you is not a risk we would like to take. Now, my name is Scott. If you are joining for the first time, I'm teamed up with VM on camera, and James has headed out in the other vehicle. We've got Lou and Nikki in the final control room, and some of you may have noticed something that's not quite right this morning. There's something possibly a little bit out of the ordinary, and you may take a look around behind me and have a closer look and try and work out what exactly has gone on last night. Oh, I'm fairly certain you can see the leopard in the foreground now. She's just lying on this termite mound. She's just picked her head up, and it's Karula. Out in the open here, and I guess she's a little bit concealed by the small mounds of earth that the termites have built. You can also get a good idea of how windy it is. These little blades of grass are dancing from side to side. And what VM is about to reveal is another wonderful part of what you can also get a good idea of how windy it is. These little blades of grass are dancing from side to side. And what VM is about to reveal is another wonderful for the cancellation, or postponing rather, of that fireside chat. But everything happens for a reason, and now you get to see the whole scene. What I am going to do is reposition the vehicle quickly so that we can get to see Karula from a different view. And we're going to pop you across onto James's vehicle for a quick update on how his morning's getting along as we get into the next spot.
Well, everybody, good morning and welcome, as Scott, I'm sure, has said to you, to Safari Live. And sometimes one is richly blessed in the morning. Karula on a kill, and this magnificent breeding herd of buffalo now moving gently to the east and north, possibly to the fresh grazing grasses that have come up as a result of the wonderful rains we've had over the last 2 days. My name is James Henry. On camera we have Tebs today. Hello Tebs, morning now. And we are going to spend some time with these buffalo. We'll probably also then go and see if we can't find some lions lurking around the place. We haven't had any for a while, and I thought 2 days ago when we found these buffalo that they would be sort of followed behind by a number of lions. The sticks were around, the three remaining Birminghams were around, but the Nkahuma Pride, we don't really know where they are at the moment. So that doesn't seem to have happened, but wonderful to spend a little bit of time with this fairly large, I'd say probably 400 or 500 strong herd of buffalo that have been streaming past us now for the last 10 or 12 minutes, which is just very wonderful. Don't often get these herds, and after the rain that we've had, here comes a funny old boy, after the rain we've had over the last 2 days, I think you'll find that these buffalo are going to start putting on condition very quickly because of the amazing amount of grass that will spring out of the ground. This chap doesn't look to be in a particularly good way. He's got a bit of a hanging bottom lip. So often we will tell you that there are big buffalo bulls that live on their own when they get a bit old to be with the herd and they can't compete for mating opportunities. But, you know, looking through this herd here, like that bull that just walked past, He is in no way in his prime. He looks to be much older than his prime to me, and I suspect that the buffaloes probably don't necessarily always go off and live on their own when they've had enough of trying to breed. I think probably those bachelor herds, bachelor bulls that we get, will join up with herds like this and then drop off again. Simply because if there are no females in estrus, there's very little point for them to them being around a herd like this. There's a chap with enormous horns. He looks like a longhorn steer. Just to the left of him. There we go. No, staring at us to the left. Amazing. You see that one there, Tibbs? There's the longhorn steer at the back. That's him. Right. Now, as beautiful as buffalo are, they don't quite match the magnificence of Karula, Queen of Juma. So I think we'll sit with these chaps for a bit longer, and then, but while we're doing that, we're going to hand you back to look at Karula, the Queen of Juma, with Scott. See you just now.
Wow, what a morning we're getting off to here. And who knows, maybe there are some lion interested in that herd of buffalo that James has found. Strong likelihood lion do like to follow large herds of buffalo. This big cat, as you know, has already got her meal stashed up in a tree nearby. You can see her belly is full. And if she manages to keep that kill up in the tree, she could well be here for the next 24 to 48 hours at least. It's a lot of meat for one leopardess to feed on. I must say though that she hasn't got it very high up in this jackalberry tree. And I'd like to just take a closer look at this kill, because what may happen is that a hyena may come onto the scene. It's very windy, as you can tell, and the scent may be getting carried off far and wide. And hyena, who've got very strong senses of smell, as well as lion, I guess, could well come and try and steal this from her. And because it's not hoisted up high in this tree, we could get an entertaining scene of a hyena or possibly lion jumping up and trying to pull this carcass down. Obviously, we don't necessarily want to wish for that, but it is a prospect that could well unfold. Take a closer look. You can see what I mean. It's not very high. And Safari Hayes, you've also pointed that out, so well done for noticing that. I'm guessing, guys, I don't know what you think, but I'm saying probably around 1.5 meters off the ground. And a hyena would fairly easily be able to jump up and latch onto either the nose of that impala or one of the hooves, and then try and wrestle it down from the tree. What's interesting is it looks like she did have the kill slightly higher up. I'm not sure if we're too far away, but if you can just zoom into the branches just above where that impala carcass is now. No, we can't tell from here, but we will reposition a little bit later. As we came in, it was interesting, we could see some blood stained and also rumen, the stomach contents, and it was stained kind of up. It looked like the kill had been a little bit higher up over there. And what may have happened, interesting stuff, there are 2 hyena at the Juma waterhole. Nothing's happening here. Let's head right there and see what happens. Karula's fast asleep. We are going to come back here, everyone, but let's try and see what happens. We're very close to the Juma waterhole, and whoever sent us those reports that the hyena are there, thank you very, very much. For those of you who may be joining Safari Live for the first time, we get incredible information from this live waterhole camera, and this morning is no different. What are the odds of them popping up almost on cue? We were just chatting about the likelihood of hyena coming onto the scene. Okay, we're going to have to hurry up. They are heading up, it sounds like, in the opposite direction to where this kill is. So it sounds like Karula's Impala is safe. I just want to hurry on because I would love to get you a view of them. Somewhere down to the left there. You may notice the roads have all been washed smooth by a lot of rain. I'm not sure exactly how many millimeters we got or inches. Probably around 20 millimeters, I'm guessing. So decent downpour of rain. I wonder if we're going to get a visual of them. Can't see them at this stage. There's Peter in his pan, a hippo that was named by Kevin just a few days ago. He's the local resident. Okay, now life on safari can be full of ups and downs, and this is one of those moments. The hyena have disappeared somewhere across on this side of the Juma waterhole, and we're going to slowly make our way back to Karula. Hyena are moving quite quickly, obviously, and while we head back to Karula, James is going to take you on a little bit of an adventure.
So these buffalo are now just about sort of going to cross to Buffels Hook, which is the reserve to the north of us. I think that they're probably about 500 or 600 here. They are all the way behind us on the road. They're all the way in front of us, and they're still crossing. They've been crossing now the boundary for about, well, in a broad phalanx for about 20 minutes. So I think at least sort of 500 or 600 strong. Huge herd of buffalo. And I'm surprised that there aren't any lions coming up behind them. That will happen eventually, no doubt. Lions do enjoy buffalo in this area, and so I'm sure they will come about here fairly soon. But what we'll do, once they have all crossed, is we'll head across to Buffels Hook Dam and see if we can't... Sorry, I've missed a radio communication. My earpiece fell out. It'll come again. Go again. The comment that I missed was from Larry. Thank you, Larry. You say you want to see a lion wrapped around a buffalo's neck. Larry, I'm sure the buffalo wouldn't appreciate that sentiment at all. But, yes, it would be fascinating to see, and certainly not entirely improbable around here. Buffalo are generally fall victim to lions quite a lot. Let us, for the moment, appreciate the living buffalo, unharassed as they are, and enjoying the flush of spring grass that is now coming out of the ground. Thank you, Larry. Huge, huge herd. We don't know, like I say, the two prides that we watch mainly are the sticks and the inkahumas. Not that we've seen either of them very much lately. We don't know where they are. Well, we know vaguely where the sticks are. We know they've been hanging around just to the east of us with two of the Birmingham boys. Well, certainly one of them has. The Salalas are back at Londolozi, and the inkahumas, well, they've just absconded. Stop here. A brief last look at them as they disappear. And the Birmingham boys seem to have split up a bit, so that's also quite interesting. You know, there are the five of them, and one was quite badly injured the other day. We think maybe had a conflict with the other two, and then two of them have disappeared. Just roll slowly back a little bit. The unfairly kind of maligned for their similarity to cattle. I think cattle can be rather magnificent, and I think these are even better. All right, let's go back to Scott. Our signal isn't very stable. We'll leave these buffalo and leopard.
So we've just got back to the kill, and this is what I wanted to show you earlier. Quite interesting that even though we haven't been here the whole night, we can still piece together puzzles of what went on. And if you look very closely, you may notice there's a slight kind of red tinge up onto that branch there just above the leaves. You can see that quite clearly. And if VM just goes down a little bit, you'll notice there's also a little bit of stomach content or lining that's rubbed against the tree there. So obviously she had hoisted the kill higher up into this tree at some stage last night, and it's not as easy as you may think it is. Also, what's interesting is that you can see those puncture wounds on the impala's neck, and that is in all likelihood where she latched on to the impala once she had caught it, and she would have latched onto this area in order to suffocate it. So really interesting stuff this. We don't often get to analyze a carcass like this, and again, great prospects. Unfortunate for this poor female impala. You'll also notice that there's little patches of her fur missing higher up on her body. Karula would have been plucking that fur off. She hasn't done a very serious job. I don't know if it's better with the lights on or off, probably just a little bit. But you can see there little patches of fur missing, and she will be doing a lot more plucking of fur as she continues to make her way through feeding on this carcass. Now, we've discussed the likelihood of lion and hyena trying to steal this carcass, and Chris Rogue has just asked whether a python may steal it, and highly unlikely, Chris Rogue, but anything is possible out here in nature. Snakes will more commonly feed on and prey on living animals. They're not prone to scavenging, as far as I'm aware, especially wild snakes. I think captive snakes may be taught otherwise, but I've never heard of that happening. If any of you have heard of a python stealing a kill, or even coming across a carcass and feeding on it, please let us know. That would be really interesting. But Chris, like I say, I don't think that is likely. Another likely candidates of who may steal from Karula are her sons or other male leopards, possibly boyfriends, ex-boyfriends. So don't be surprised if a male leopard comes onto the scene. It won't be downright stealing, and you'll probably find that she will happily share her kill with them, and they're not going to prevent her from feeding on it further, which is probably the case with lion and hyena. Well, this is also interesting. We're just moving on to the hooves here, and this again is a view that we don't get to see very often. Now, what's interesting is that these are the back legs, and they've got these kind of little black tufts, little pom-poms there, and those are scent glands.
Go over closer.
Yeah, good idea. So let me just try and get a little bit closer. We can have a closer look at these scent glands. Good idea, Vim. And what's interesting is that not all antelope will have these scent glands. Also known as metatarsal glands. And the science is behind it that because impala are herd animals, they live in large herds, and they do get chased by predators fairly often. And in those scenarios, what will happen is these scent glands will leave a trail of scent as the impala bombshell and scatter in all directions, and their big legs powering them away will help to activate these scent glands. And then when the impala have all regrouped, they can then follow the scent trail back to one central position and probably relocate the rest of the herd. So that's the case there. I'm not too sure exactly what they smell like. Often the antelope's scent glands that I have managed to smell have often been quite sweet in smell, almost like honey. And I guess if Karula's not watching, I can maybe just rub my finger against it as we reposition and let you know if it does smell like anything interesting. Let's see. Do a little bit of research here. Great questions just come through from Ramey, and it's a theory that I haven't touched on. And Ramey would like to know if we think there's any chance that Karula would have jumped out of this tree. And no, Ramey, it's not what I think happened, and the reason why I know that is I forgot to tell you a critical part of the story. She was found last night at about 7:30, I think. She was found by another vehicle who was out on drive, and they saw her actually make this kill, or they were in the area when she made this kill. Ramey, as you asked whether or not I thought she had lunged out of this tree, I've looked up and noticed something. This may be hard for some of us, or all of us, I think. But there's another piece to the story. And this may help us understand what exactly has gone down. Maybe the blood we saw earlier wasn't from this large carcass, but from this baby impala fetus that we can see they're about to be born. And Lynn, you were wondering if this impala was pregnant. It would have been difficult for me to tell if in fact she was, because if she was a young female under 2 years of age, she wouldn't be sexually mature, and then she therefore wouldn't have been pregnant. But she's obviously 2 years or older. That's when they become sexually mature, and she did in fact have a fetus, or a little baby. And that's a kind of sign of the times. It is the baby season, and there'll be a lot of animals giving birth very, very shortly. I remember when I arrived at Djuma on the 22nd of November last year. It was my very, very first morning, not far from here, walking out of the final control room, where Karula, the same leopard, had an impala kill. It wasn't an adult impala though, it was a young lamb that had just been born. This one hadn't been born yet. It was still in the mother's stomach that she's torn open. So it's just interesting to know though that we're a week off that date, so just a week behind, and we have yet to see one baby impala. So it will be interesting to see when the first impala lamb is seen. It could be today. This one doesn't count, although it does give us a good idea of how far along they are. Well, Maggie's asked whether we think Karula is pregnant, and Maggie, she certainly could be, but hard to be certain. So I'm just going to give it a rub with my finger here and see if I can't get any scent. That should do. It smells kind of horsey, I guess. So I can't really smell anything sweet, but again, she is not a living specimen, which may be a better individual to analyze, and you'll probably find that those scent glands will need to be operational in order to push out that scent, and me just rubbing my thumb along them may not have kind of stimulated them or activated them as the impala can do when need be. Anyway, good to just try and work out exactly what goes on out here, and that was an opportunity that I haven't had before. Hello, Miss Jen in Texas. Good to have you on board with us. And you would like to know whether she would try and defend her kill. Yes, to a degree she would, but animals, especially leopards, as far as I've been aware, are not massive risk takers. It's not worth it. They don't have medical aids like we do. So a confrontation is often not worth it, even if food is on the line, which is one of the most important resources or commodities that animals try and get out here. So I don't think so, Miss Jen. She's not going to actively try and fight off a hyena. She may growl at it and do her best, but to come into contact with an animal over food is unlikely. Certainly possible though, but unlikely. Back to Mo's question regarding her pregnancy. She has been mating a lot for this whole year that we've been at Djuma. She did lose a cub in December or early January last year, and it's not uncommon for leopards to actually come into season just weeks after losing a cub to try and get the next generation on the way. And she could well have already given birth to other litters. She's been kind of quite elusive over the last year, and there is a slight chance that she has given birth and lost cubs in that period. There must be something wrong basically if she has not given birth in a whole 1 year period since she lost her last cubs, as it's only a 3-month gestation period, and she can come into season, and they often will come into season very shortly after losing cubs. So not too sure what's going on. She's not incredibly old. She is about 9 years old now, so certainly well within the brackets of still being able to give birth. But who knows, Mo? It will be interesting, and hopefully she is pregnant and will be delivering some cubs to us shortly. Now, some of you may be concerned about me just rubbing my thumb on the scent glands of that impala. I know Zumi Mike has just asked, why is she not concerned about us touching her kill or stealing her kill? Well, she probably didn't even see me doing that, Zumi Mike. And they spend so much time around us, or we spend so much time around them rather, and that reassures them that we do not want to cause any hardships or problems for them. We only ever spectate, so that's why she doesn't really care that we're here. It's why when we drive around, she doesn't even lift up her head when she's sleeping. While we were parked just meters away from her kill, she didn't even have a look up, because she knows that it's highly unlikely that we are going to do anything. And that's over many, many years of habituation and very good guiding practice, not only from us, but from all the guides within the Sabi Sands that respect the animals, give them their space, and basically don't interfere or give them a reason to be concerned about what we do. I'm sure, just like me, a lot of you are hoping that she is going to get up and go and feed on the impala. That certainly is possible, and very difficult to predict when. As you can see, she is full-bellied, and she'll be in no rush to finish this impala. Now that it's hoisted safely up into the tree, she'll be able to take her time feeding on it leisurely, and it's also nice cool conditions for her to be enjoying this kill in. The weatherman does predict more rain, so let's hope that he or she is wrong, because like I said earlier, it does make our job a little bit tricky, and then we have to call off the safari, which is certainly not what we want. I did take some fun videos with my GoPro yesterday, so I'll be sure to try and get those up today to show you guys what was happening after the safari did stop. A little bit of behind the scenes action, the chaos that ensues as we try and keep everything dry. James was building trenches to try and help the flooding kind of courtyard where we all stay. So some fun video action to show you guys a little bit later. I'll be sure to post that onto my Facebook page. So at least you get an idea of what was going on after the safari did finish. It was a deluge of rain. We were all soaked from head to toe, but it was great fun trying to, I don't know, I guess it's a universal phenomenon when rain falls after not falling for many months. Everybody gets filled with joy and excitement, and you start acting, I think, a quarter of the age that you are. So we were all running around like little kids, wildly screaming and hopping around through puddles, but you'll be able to have a look at that a bit later. We have Aubrey on his way into the sighting with his guests, and they were actually the people who were with this leopard when she was successful in making her kill. And what I can do, Vim, if you don't mind, just kind of showing where Aubrey is now. Apparently she was somewhere where that vehicle is parked now when she made the kill. There's Aubrey and his lucky guest. They're off to a good start for the morning. And from where his vehicle is there, I can just point across to the tree where the kill is. She probably dragged it, that's about 50 meters or so. So just to give you an idea of what she did, it's interesting, she may have used this specific tree in the past. I'm not too sure, I haven't seen her with the kill in that tree, but they can drag their kills many hundreds of meters if need be. She was lucky in this area, lots of different trees around that she could possibly hoist into, but interesting that she chose that one specifically and dragged the kill quite some distance to it. I'm just going to tell Aubrey quickly that there's a baby impala. I don't think I need to use the radio because he is so close. I'm just going to shout across to him. Morning, Orbs. Morning, everyone. How are you doing? Good. There's also a baby impala further up in the tree above where the adult is, just so that you know. Yeah. Now, earlier on, Chris Rogue asked whether or not a python could possibly steal a kill from this leopard. I'm still waiting to hear if any of you have heard of such an event unfolding before. But Derek has commented that he thinks it's impossible for a python to eat an impala of that size. And Derek, I hate to do this, but you are in fact wrong. And the scary thing is that there are the African rock pythons here in South Africa and other parts of Africa. They're quite a wide-ranging snake that have been documented feeding on not an adult female impala, but an adult male. And it even manages to swallow that male impala with the horns, which are very, very wide and obviously an awkward thing to deal with. And what will often happen is that the horns will actually puncture through the python's stomach, sometimes killing the python, but other times the python's stomach juices are actually so strong and so acidic that it can burn through those horns, and the horns fall off outside the body. The snake's little puncture wounds then heal, and then it continues to digest an entire male impala. So sadly, I don't have any footage or videos of that. It's never something that I've seen personally, but if you scratch around, I'm sure you will be able to find some footage or pictures of African rock pythons dealing with some incredibly large prey. So Derek, that is some interesting info on that. And thanks very much, Edward, who has been doing some research on the topic of leopards and pythons interacting with one another, and he says in fact it's opposite to what Chris Rogue suggests, and it's mainly the leopard that will steal from pythons. And thank you very, very much for that update, Edward. I must also say, and I should have said this earlier, that leopards will also not only steal from pythons, but feed on pythons. I have, on a handful of occasions, seen leopards with python kills hoisted up in trees, and I'm not talking about small pythons, I'm talking about the big 4-meter pythons, and they get even longer than that, which is scary to think about. 5, sometimes 6 meters in length, these large African rock pythons. we're not going to be going anywhere, but we are going to be sending you for a change of scenery. Enjoy what James has to update you on, and we'll be right here waiting for your return. Well, that was a very short trip across to James's vehicle, and he is in a low signal area, so that's what happened there. If you are joining the safari for your first time, it's important to know that this is live, it's unedited, and it's being broadcasted to you from the middle of the African wilderness. So there are occasionally some tech glitches, one of which you have just experienced. But at least we are here with Karula, the Queen of Djuma, as she is well known amongst a lot of you. And we've been discussing the likelihood of her going to feed on this kill. I don't know what to do. I don't know what you guys suggest. Do we stay? How much time do we invest? Do we spend the whole 3 hours here? Do we go off, look for something else, then come back? I'm not too sure, but send through your thoughts as to what we should do, and that way we can maybe jointly make a decision about what we should do next. Like I said, I don't know what to do. A hyena could come onto the scene. Other animals could come onto the scene. It could get really interesting. Then again, nothing could happen and she could sleep for the rest of the time. So not too sure what to suggest, but James has got some better signal and he is ready to receive you.
See in the background there 4 little goslings. What were 7 have become just 4 little Egyptian goslings, and I suspect sadly fallen prey to various predators around the place, possibly a water monitor, possibly most likely, however, other birds, marabou storks perhaps even fish eagles, as they've been knocking about here over the last few days. I didn't come down here yesterday, so I'm not sure. In fact, I did, sorry, in the morning I came down here and there were only 5. So they've lost another one yesterday. And their parenting technique seems to be fairly stringent. I mean, they're around all the time with the youngsters, but the youngsters then try to run off sometimes. And they are grazing birds. And so sisters have spotted, just when we first came to them, they had spotted a little patch of green off to the sort of right-hand side of your screen, and that's what they were trying to eat there. Now, they're extremely vulnerable there to anything from a genet to a African wildcat to a monitor lizard to even something like a leopard. And you can see them now walking past a woolly-necked stork. And the woolly-necked stork probably won't be much of a threat to them. There's also, of course, a group of 5 hippopotamus here, and they seem to have returned after the rain. And there isn't an enormous amount more water in the dam as a result of the rain. There is a little bit. I'd say it's increased. If we think of 100% being just below the wall, I'd say it's increased by about 0.5% over the course of the last 2 days' rain. And certainly there's been, if you look at the inlet to the right-hand side of your screen, you can see a little bit there where there's been a bit more water. So maybe it is filling up slowly. The groundwater will be a lot higher than it was after the rain, and so that'll make the levels go up a little bit. There's one more bird I just want to show there. It's right in front of us here, just knocking around on the mud. Yeah, that's it. Now that, everybody, is a common sandpiper, if I'm not very much mistaken. I'm just going to look at it very carefully with my binoculars. These sandpipers are notoriously difficult things to try and identify, but he's certainly one of the wading birds, and I suspect common sandpiper. You can see a bit spotty on the back, a bit of a white, there's a white kind of flash in front of the wings that you may just be able to see, and that makes that a common sandpiper. I'll just confirm that quickly. No, James, it's not. You know what that is, everyone? That is a green sandpiper, I think. That's really quite special. They're not green at all, of course. Where they get that name is anyone's guess, but very spotted on the back. A little bit of an eye stripe above the eye. That's quite special. Very difficult to tell. And now this is very exciting. Thank you, Lynn, for your update. Lynn, you say that you've heard your first woodland kingfisher next to the Djuma Dam Cam. That is fantastic news. I'm very excited about that. I have not heard or seen one myself this year, and I'm really excited that they maybe have come back. I'm astonished that it's taken this long for them to get here, I must say. Yeah, so if we just have a quick look at the book here, I'll show you why I think that's a sandpiper. And a very good question about the goslings. If those Egyptian geese lose all four, will they be able to lay more eggs? Yes, they would. They definitely would be able to. They're not particularly seasonal breeders. I mean, they'll try and focus on the summer months, but certainly if we look at the goslings that are at Arathusa Dam, there's 7 of them left, and they've grown. Sorry, excuse me 1 second. They have grown exponentially, and they're absolutely fine, and they were born long before these ones were. So Barbara, should they lose these 4, yeah, I think they may well try and breed again. Let's just have a quick look in the book here. I'm kind of vacillating between 2 birds here. So if you look here at these 2 birds, they are 2 different kinds of sandpipers, and we've had a guess also that it could be a wood sandpiper. That is a common sandpiper there, and there is a green sandpiper. Now, the reason I don't think it's a common is that it doesn't have that very obvious kind of flash of white next to the wings, and it also has a kind of stripe over the eye, like that one. So I think that we're looking at a green sandpiper. The guess that it was a wood sandpiper, I'm afraid I do not agree with. Here is the wood sandpiper over here. Now the wood sandpiper has got green legs and a very distinct eye stripe over the eye. And that bird that we've been looking at does not have that. So not a wood sandpiper. It's either common or a green, but I think it's probably a green sandpiper, which is actually quite special. They're uncommon summer visitors. Very nice. Okay, well, I think we shall press on from here, and we'll head down towards, we haven't found any lion tracks, so I'm going to push back out onto the cheetah cat line. And before we do that, we'll just have a listen for a while. Julia and Houston, you want to know what birds we can hear? Well, let's have a listen. Not very loud today. Right, so the most obvious thing that we can hear is the black-headed oriole going choo, choo. Very liquid, beautiful call. Some arrow-marked babblers. We had a southern black tit going bzz, 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 bzz. There's a sabota lark calling there. Very lovely trill. The ubiquitous ring-necked dove saying work harder, work harder. And that's a mosque swallow. That's really nice. But not a very loud dawn chorus. It's a little bit subdued without the sun. I think there's a mosque swallow there. It looks like a red-chested, but it's got a lot of white on its underside. Whoa. Amazing swallows. And Chris Rogue, you want to know about phalaropes, which are another one of these difficult to identify wading birds. I suspect that they may have been seen here certainly haven't seen one. I'm just going to try and find a picture and get their distribution. But I don't think that I've definitely not seen one here. But it's not to say that they couldn't be here. Let me just check up. And a P for phalarope. Ooh, can't even find them. Give me 1 second and I shall tell you, Chris Rogue. Good question. It's always nice to be stumped this early in the morning. It's important. There we go. Wilson's phalarope, or the red-necked. No, Chris Rogue, let's just have a quick look here again, Tibbs. Here are the two phalaropes. There's the one, and there's the other. And they're only found on the far western Atlantic coast. There are the odd, you won't be able to see it from here, but if you look at the map, there are little circles on it, and what that means is single records. So records where birds have been kind of vagrant, that have flown in, been seen briefly by some mad twitcher, and then they've disappeared again. So they will sometimes occur inland here, but very, very rarely. And they're very rare even in their kind of distribution area. So no, we don't get any phalaropes around this area. Thank you, Chris Rogue. I didn't know that, and marvellous that you've now inspired me to learn it. The wind has come up, it is blustering, and you can see a very grey day indeed here, but after the enormous heat that we had last week, this is something of a relief, I must say. The other thing we can hear, and they will be breeding now, are some red-billed buffalo weavers. And those red-billed buffalo weavers are into their nests and out of their nests and building frantically, and they'll start feeding, I'm sure, little clutches of babies fairly soon. Beautiful to have them up here. Oh, it's getting greyer. Joan in England, you are requiring me to go back to my book. You say you think that it's definitely not a green sandpiper, definitely a wood sandpiper. Joan, I'm going to have to disagree with you vehemently on that. And I'll tell you why. It's simply because I'm happy to concede that it could be a common sandpiper. It's definitely not a wood sandpiper though, because it does not have that eye stripe. So it is completely impossible that it's a wood sandpiper. And it also doesn't have those fairly distinctive green legs. So I'm going to go with green sandpiper. Joan, we'll agree to disagree, but I do so enjoy these little ornithological debates, I must say. I really think it's one of those two, Joan. The only other thing that it could be is a green shank, but I'm pretty sure that it's not a green shank either. So I'm afraid my vote, Joan, is going to go with a green sandpiper. He's still there, actually. We'll have another look at him. Tibbs, can you see him there? Now, Joan, he just doesn't have that eye stripe. He's got that very small eye stripe, like on the green sandpiper. Yeah. I'm going to keep a little bit more. I'm going to have another good look at this bird while you're away, and let's go and have an update from Karula, and when we come back I will give you a definitive answer for what this bird is. See you just now.
Well, sad news for the family of Egyptian geese at Buffelshoek Waterhole. They started off with 7 goslings, if my memory serves me correct, and now down to 4. And I wonder how many will survive to adulthood. You can see that Karula, the queen, is still fast asleep, and she hasn't been showing any signs of movement. That could all change very quickly, but for now she is comfortable and happy to relax out in the open on this cool, cloudy day. And again, just to reiterate, she could feed on an adult female impala for 3 to 4 days if hyenas don't steal it, and it doesn't look like they will be successful in stealing it because it is hoisted up into a tree. But what is playing on my mind is that that kill is not very high up, and if a hyena arrives, it will be an incredibly interesting scenario to witness. See it jumping up, trying to latch onto the impala. It'll also be interesting to see if she doesn't run up and try and kind of semi-defend the kill from up in the tree, where she could try and scratch out and paw the hyena jumping up into the tree from a kind of point of safety. So that is one thing she could do. She could also jump into the tree very quickly if she sees a hyena coming onto the scene and try and pull that kill higher up. So those are the potential prospects if a hyena does arrive, but for now it appears like not too much is going on. Now, I must correct myself from earlier. I'm sure a lot of you did realize I got confused between this leopard's age and her daughter, called Shadow's age. I said that she was 9 years old. It's Shadow, in fact, that's 9, and Karula over here is 11, roughly. And I wonder how old Shadow is doing. Haven't seen her for quite some time yet. Just had a great idea come through from Mauritia in Texas. And last year I'm told that obviously Peter and Hayden suggested that you should guess what date the first impala lamb will be seen, and I think that's a great idea. We haven't done that yet, and there still is time. So today is the 16th of November, and like I said, when I arrived last year, it was the morning of the 23rd of November. This same leopard had a baby impala up in a tree. It wasn't a fetus from an adult impala that she had killed. It was just the baby impala that had been born very recently that she had killed. So that gives you a kind of date to work on from last year. I'm guessing that I'm going to say the 22nd of November. I'm going to think that it's a little bit later than last year. And the reason for that is that it's a very dry year. And maybe the impala decided to delay giving birth, or delay the rut ever so slightly. I must be careful how I word this. Delayed the rut and therefore delayed their probable birthing date, in the hope that by giving themselves a bit more time, it will just increase the likelihood of there being a decent amount of food around, so that they can not only feed themselves but also obviously create the milk and the nutrition needed to raise the young impala. So I'm going to take my guess as the 22nd of November for the first impala to be seen. I'm not too sure what you guys think. Send through, or maybe just keep your bets to yourself, but it may be worth documenting them somewhere. Maybe you can tweet them with hashtag Safari Live. We're not going to go through everyone's, but as long as there's a paper trail, we will be able to keep track of who guessed when. What you could also do is maybe in your groups, I know a lot of you have kind of your own safari groups, you can have some friendly bets amongst one another, or some more serious bets as to when the first impala shall be seen. Another bet you could have is which of the presenters is going to be the first one to find it for you. Oh, morning. Why now? Why all of a sudden the sad face? What could have got her worked up? Hey, Karula? Did you wake up on the wrong side of the termite mound? It appears. Interesting stuff, that. She all of a sudden just rolled up and snarled once or twice. She does seem to have a bit of a mind of her own. Now, I'm going to quickly reposition. What I'm actually wanting to do is forecast that she's going to get up and go and feed on this impala kill. So I'm going to try and get into a spot where we can film her as she comes up to the tree. It's a gamble. I'm confident that she could well come straight to this kill and start feeding on it, and it'll be great to not have to reposition the vehicle. What I'm also going to do is pop my camera at the base of the tree and just start it filming it, and maybe we'll get to see her walk right past this camera and jump up into the tree. So it's a two-way project. There we go, the camera's going. Just need to position it accordingly here. Oh. That should work. You can't see it, but as we move past, I'll get them to show you where we put the camera. And if she does in fact walk and jump up into the tree, then you can just pan across there quickly now. We're going to get a really fun video of her coming straight up that tree. And back in position now. The reason why I think she is going to come and feed on the kill is because obviously she's looking more awake, and she also let off one or two yawns. Good indication that she is thinking about moving. I really do wonder what it is that got her so focused on this other vehicle. It could be eye contact, and leopards aren't the hugest fans of being stared down, and maybe it's just the fact that one person on that vehicle has locked eyes with her, and for a reason that's unexplainable by me, she's just taken a distance. If she was hugely frustrated, she would let us know. It's just a very mild frustration, so don't be confused by the fact that this is nothing too serious, just interesting behavior. Well, Cassie in Tennessee's asked a great question, because at this time of the year, the leopards and other predators will kind of have options in terms of what they can and will predate. Cassie's interested to know whether or not she focused on this pregnant female impala, knowing that she would be a little bit heavier than a male or a female that is not pregnant, and therefore, back to snoozies. And therefore it would be easier to catch something that is weighed down by nearly ready to be born baby. And Cassie, I don't think that's necessarily the case. In all likelihood, what would have happened is it would have been the closest impala to her. It was kind of at dusk that she made the kill, in very windy conditions. And where possible, they certainly will feed on or predate weaker members of a herd, but in this case I think it would have just been the closest impala to her. When there is a herd of animals that you're hunting, even though you may be spoilt with choices, what makes it more difficult is the fact that there's that many more eyes and ears to spot you. So if it was a lone impala, it would almost be easier in a way, less options, but also less eyes and ears to detect you. So I'm guessing it was just the impala that got closest to her that she decided to ambush. But what we will notice, as soon as the impalas do start giving birth, it will be more likely for them to feed, though the leopards at least, to feed on baby impalas. They will be able to clearly differentiate between an adult and a baby, and they'll typically target them. Not only leopards, wild dogs, even lions and hyena to a degree will focus predominantly on feeding on baby impala, so that is probably the majority of the predator cuisine that we will be seeing in the coming weeks. Interesting topic on that is that impala, and one of the reasons why impala are so successful is that because they've got a very intense rutting period where they will be doing their mating, they've also got a very intense calving period. And by having an intense calving period, it only gives the predators a kind of small window of opportunity to cash in on the really weak and small, unwise impalas. If the impalas had a long rutting period and therefore gave birth over a long period of time, the leopards and lions and wild dog would be able to pick off the young and weak over that long period of time. But again, because it's very short, they'll only have a short window period. Thereafter, once the impala get to a week or 2 weeks, I mean, each day that they grow in age, they'll become that much harder for the leopards and lions and wild dogs to catch. So it is a reason why they are so successful, and it is also a reason why we will see a massive influx of babies all at one time. Well, look at this. It appears that there are some more impala not too far away. And it's not uncommon for leopard to catch and kill more than one item of prey and stash it up in a tree nearby. So that could happen. Unlikely. She'd have to be very fortunate for the impala to run past her in this open clearing. But strange things do happen out here. And another strange thing that could possibly happen once the impalas will start giving birth is that something that's relative to virtual tourists question, asking whether any eagles will take down young impalas. And you spot on, virtual tourists, they will indeed. Mainly the martial eagle in this area will be the main predator or aerial predator of baby impala. It's a massive bird of prey with a wingspan of up to 2.5 meters and certainly capable of catching and killing baby impala. So that is something that could happen. Another thing that could happen, not likely here because we don't have any baboons, but troops of baboons will hunt and catch and kill baby antelope. It happened not so long ago in the Kruger National Park, where Nikki's father was on tour enjoying a safari, and he didn't actually get to see it, but one of his friends who was out in another vehicle saw a baboon catch and kill and run off with a baby steenbuck. But baboons will often also predate on baby impala. So interesting stuff. Baboons, a lot of you wouldn't have expected that. They are omnivorous. They will feed on both vegetable matter but also meat when it is easy to get to, like baby impalas. Come on, Karula, please, can you go and jump up into that tree? I think it's going to happen. I think it's just a matter of a couple of minutes before she gets up. I really hope she does. Some of you may have seen an incredible video of her walking right over my GoPro before scent marking on a marula tree, and we could get an equally awesome video as she walks up to the tree and jumps up to go and feed on this impala. Let's just hope my camera's got enough battery life. It is rolling now. But I think time is on our side. Well, you wouldn't believe it, but these impala are coming closer and closer and could end up running straight past her. What's interesting is that the males are getting quite worked up, and the reason why the males are running around excitedly like this is that there's a surge in hormones amongst the females. There's the females perfectly on cue, walking into frame with their swollen pregnant bellies. As I was saying, those females are going to be producing large amounts of hormones and estrogen. Look, there's a big male following closely, and they'll be producing that in preparation to give birth. And this kind of spike in hormones floating through the air is what riles up the men. You can see how he's holding his nose to the ground, sniffing very intently, posturing as he would during the rutting season. And it's basically the men getting turned on by these scents. It's not going to allow them any mating opportunities, but it is going to get them worked up. Oh, look at that, the one just jumped into the air, and they're probably 100 meters away or so, so they're going to have a long way to go before they get to her. So I don't think any action is imminent, but we'll keep a close eye on these impala and see what happens. Karula is now looking back at the kill. Come Come on, Karula, get up. Another yawn, all looking good here. I think she's going to be on the move soon. Come on. No. Oh. Barbara is now interested to know whether the impala's hooves are shaped very similarly to their back hooves. The front hooves similar to the back hooves. Hello, Karula. And yes, Barbara, they are very, very similar looking. The front hooves will be ever so slightly bigger though than the back hooves, and that's the same for all four-legged animals. It's typically the front legs or feet that carry the majority of the weight of the animal, and therefore they have the slightly bigger hoof, or in the case of the predators, a larger pad. And maybe we'll be able to go and have a closer look at those hooves, which are dangling perfectly at eye level, and compare the front and the back. Again, very good behavior, this indicating that she needs yawning but also grooming. These are two things that leopards and lions really kind of do every time they wake up and before they get active. I guess we could equate it, it's like kind of waking up in the morning and having a shower, brushing your teeth, getting ready to face the world, and she is doing exactly the same thing. Look at how long those whiskers are. And aren't we so lucky to be viewing her out in the open like this on a nice cool summer day. It's not common to have cool weather in our summer months, so this is a very pleasant surprise. Okay, well, she could be here for quite some time grooming, and we're just going to pop you onto James's vehicle for a quick update as to what he's up to, and if any signs of her moving towards that kill occur, I'll be sure to let Louise know in the director's chair, and she'll race you guys back here if need be.
Now, Joan, in England, I think I might have to concede defeat to you. And I'll tell you why now. Come on, where are you, bird? Right. If you look here, and RC also, here is the green sandpiper on my phone, on a sort of more comprehensive list of birds, and, well, not list, but certainly of pictures. That's the green sandpiper there, and if I flick along like that, there we get a picture of a bird that looks fairly distinct from the one we saw, and the reason for that is this very, very pale under part of white that our bird definitely did not have. It did have a similar eye stripe to that, though. Yeah, right, that's the green sandpiper. Then the wood sandpiper. No, go away. Hang on a second. Go away! Right, there we go. There's the wood sandpiper there. And that's what Joan and RC thought that bird was. Now, if we look at the wood sandpiper, that particular picture looks a lot better than the one I had in my book, because the eye stripe is not nearly as wide. I still don't think it had an eye stripe quite like that, but it definitely had a shape and more buffy underpart, just like that bird. And if we go across to some of the other pictures, that starts to look a bit more like what we had, with very distinctive spotting on the top. So I will concede defeat, Joan and RC. We will go with wood sandpiper, and possibly not in full breeding plumage yet, and that's why the eye stripe may have been slightly less distinct than it was otherwise. My grateful thanks for identifying it, and my equal humble pie that I will eat for my breakfast this morning. Thank you very much for that. The waders are a tough bunch of birds. Now, if we look up here a second, I'm just going to quickly tell you what we've been doing. There's some sort of birds' nests in there, and there are lots of birds' nests around that Scott has found, and it's always a good idea to just stop where these holes are in the trees. So while Tebs zooms in on a few of the holes that have occurred due to probably various funguses eating out the heartwood of this very magnificent marula tree, I'll just tell you that we've come down the eastern cut line. We have not found any sign of lion tracks. There is lion activity to the east of us, going into Torchwood and east of that. But at the moment, I'm afraid, nothing much on Djuma in the way of lions. But we'll keep our search. Now, I do... boys have been injured. And apparently, Liz in Texas, you're a little concerned about that, obviously. And what happened was, we're not really sure what happened. Sorry, Vince in Texas, not Liz. Vince, you're not a Liz at all, are you? You're a Vince. And Vince, as far as I understand, what happened was they found the Styx female, 2 males, and 1 other male sitting further from the group, and that male looked quite a little bit injured. I don't think certainly not mortally injured, but unhappy with I think a biting on his back and perhaps on his neck as well, and he has since disappeared. I don't know where he is. Then for 2 more days, this is just to the east of us there on Torchwood, there were 2 males and 1 female, and they stayed around the Torchwood Dam, which is not far, like I say, from our eastern boundary, for about 2 days. Then they disappeared, so I'm not sure where they are. There are people looking for them now. And then further to the east of that, they've been following another 2 male lions this morning. So maybe the Birminghams are going to join up again, and maybe there's conflict in the coalition. Remember that when we first saw them, there are 5, but one of them was always spending a bit of more time away from the other 4, and I think he's older than the others. And so I think it's quite interesting that they seem to already be kind of splitting up, despite the fact that I would say that this territory is far from secure. But the lack of fight that the Matimbas have given them probably have lulled them into what might be termed a false sense of security. So let's see what happens in the next little while. It will be fascinating to see. Thank you for that, Vince, not Liz. Let us carry on down the road. We're now on our southern boundary, and we'll see if anything is popped across here. Kevin, I'm not sure where you are. Thank you very much for your inquiry. Please remember, everybody, we do love to hear where you're from. You want to know, you say sorry, we must go quickly across to Scott. Apparently there's something exciting going on there.
Now, she has just got up as we predicted, but interestingly, she's not heading towards the kill. She's kind of heading in the direction that those impala moved off in. Now, I'd be very surprised if she actively went out and stalked them. But strange things do happen in nature. Usually, what's more common is if leopards are full-bellied, or in this case, actually have a kill, they would require a hugely fortunate scenario to make another kill. They're not usually going to go out of their way. Oh, an impala's just spotted her. That's why she's turned and stopped and looked. The impala's behind us and is now alarm calling in her direction. And you may hear a few nasal snorts. We probably won't be able to show you the impala from where we are now, though. Oh, is that a little scent mark she's doing there? A little toilet break. Let's see then if we can't show this impala here. There we go. female impala. And there's the little nasal snort. So maybe Karula just wanted to head into that spot for a quick toilet break, because as I say, it's not common, or it's not likely for her to go out of her way to try and make a kill now. If the impala was to stumble upon her, of course, she wouldn't just let that opportunity pass by. And I'm hoping after a short toilet break here, she is actually going to head back to the kill and climb up into the jackalberry tree and start feeding on it. So let's cross fingers. Good signs that she is at least up and about. Break here, she is actually going to head back to the kill and climb up into the jackalberry tree and start feeding on it. So let's cross fingers. Good signs that she is at least up and about. Now, we have noticed a bit of interesting behavior from her earlier on, and Donna would like to know if I think that pregnant leopards will act differently to a leopard that is not pregnant. And Donna, not that I've personally witnessed or noticed, but it certainly is possible that a female who is at least heavily pregnant, about to give birth, may be a little bit more moody than normal. That certainly is possible. And even once a leopardess has given birth to young cubs, she again may be a little bit low on sleep, tired. She's a huge responsibility, having to feed herself and feed the cubs milk in the first few weeks of their lives, going backwards and forwards in all directions. So they certainly will be prone to less friendly behavior during those periods. I think that's fair to deduce. They are also a lot more likely to be aggressive to humans on foot if you come across them when they do have cubs, which is interesting. They know that we don't pose a threat to them. If we find Karula, this female leopard, whilst tracking on foot, she generally will just look at us and not be too fussed. Or she'll run off if we get too close, but she'll seldom actually ever charge us. However, when a leopard does have cubs, I'm just going to reposition the vehicle quickly. When a leopard does have cubs, they become very, very aggressive towards us. It doesn't matter if it's the most habituated or relaxed leopard around. When they are with young cubs, they will certainly act very differently. Wait here for now. There's a few trees obstructing us from getting into the perfect spots, and there's also another vehicle here, Andrew, and he's just arrived, so I also want to give him an opportunity to get into a good spot because he hasn't been here at all and we've been here the whole morning. So just important for us to let him kind of try and make the most of the sighting. They don't tend to spend as long as we do in the sighting, so that's why it's nice for us just to give them kind of pole position for the short time that they are here. Let's take a closer look. Still grooming herself, so still good prospects. I mean, she still is likely to feed on this guy. I'm hoping it's going to be sooner rather than later. Come on, Karula, some tasty impala for breakfast. Andrew for Scott. There's also a fetus further up, a couple of meters above the adult impala. Sorry, I was just letting Andrew know that there's also that little baby impala fetus there, because it's a very interesting story, and it's quite easy to overlook something like that because it's tucked away high up in the tree. And if it wasn't from, I think it was Raisa's question about leopards jumping out of trees onto their kills, I wouldn't have been looking up there. It is possible that, and it has been documented several times, leopards jumping out of trees on top of their kills, but like I said, in this case, Aubrey and his guests were lucky enough to be here and see that kill being made somewhere on this road that's just behind where Karula's lying down now. What have you spotted there, Via?
No, I won't be able to see it.
What is it?
There's a shongololo.
There's a millipede. I can reposition it so slightly for Via to show you this. Where do I need to go? This way. Oh, well spotted. 2 of them. 3. Oh, look, they're all curled up simultaneously. Phenomenal. Synchronized movement that between those 3 little millipedes. These are small ones. You get many different shaped and sized ones. These are medium sized. The one's just unraveled itself now. And they're probably about 2 inches long, just to give you an idea of how big they are. Look at how many legs they've got. Isn't that phenomenal? Well spotted, Via. This is so great to look at, and so important to remember that there's just so much going out here in nature. You can be enjoying a sighting with one of the most beautiful and recognized animals of Africa, the leopard, but still have such wonderful things happening around you, like these little millipedes. A sign of the rains. They have not been as abundant as they usually are in the summer months, and that's due to a lack of rainfall. But after last night's deluge of rain, they have come alive, and a lot of them are on the move, as have a lot of birds and insects. And James has found you a bird that we are going to race you across to see.
So just a quick update here, and on these white-crowned shrikes, again, Scott found sitting in this nest a little while back. They've grown bigger and bigger. We probably found them about I don't know, about a week ago, and they've got bigger and bigger, and I think one of them may have even fledged. That little one there, no, there are 2 in there. They must be just about to get out of that nest, and they must be quite enjoying the fact that they are so snug in what is undoubtedly a very warm and wonderful little space to spend this chilly weather. Isn't that sweet? It's a most perfectly constructed little nest of grasses and feathers, and then finished off with spider webs. Looks like a very lovely place to live in a chilly wind like this. And we had a question about the wind a little bit earlier, and the weather, and whether it would affect some movement of animals, because we have low temperatures predicted for the rest of the week, and by low we mean low for us, so I mean it's not going to be freezing by any stretch of the imagination, and I don't think it's going to make a huge difference to certainly movements. Movement in this area is generally fairly limited, so the word migration was used, but there's definitely no migrating that's going on at the moment, and won't have any effect. There certainly won't be any migrations as a result of this cool weather, but it will mean that the animals do behave slightly differently. The prey species, or the herbivores, will be a lot more wary because they can't hear so much what's going on, so they'll like to be on a place like quarantine. As you saw earlier, there were impala there, even though one of their number bit it, as it were, during the night. At the teeth and claws of Karula, they will still prefer to be in that open area where they can see what's going on, because they can't hear or smell when there's a wind like this. And likewise, things like the elephants tend to go into much thicker bush. They tend not to like to be in the open in the wind like this. Buffalo, I don't think, will be affected too much, except that they will move more during the middle of the day than they will at night when it's cold like this. So very nice question. Will change animal movement slightly, certainly not migratory patterns, though. There are no real mammal migration patterns in this particular area. Right, and we go. We might also go and have a look at that lilac-breasted roller's nest. Bernie, you were asking about petrichor, basically, which is a delicious smell that comes off the earth after rain. And certainly yesterday evening when the rain started, we got those lovely earthy smells that you're talking about that really do enormously to the atmosphere of a bush area like this. This morning, not so strong. I think that's probably for two reasons. One, that we and two, that apparently it is a kind of flushing of various bacteria actually that give you that earthy smell. I think what you'll find is that the heavy rain last night probably kind of washed that away a bit, and it would only come again with a light sprinkling and then some sun. So the petrichor smell is not very strong this morning, and because of the wind also, it's not very crisp. It's quite a thick atmosphere at the moment. It doesn't have that kind of, I know exactly what you mean when you say the fresh clean or the kind of crisp cleanness that comes after rain. We don't really have that at the moment because this cloud is still kind of sat right on top of the low veld and is moving, sort of scudding over the sky. So very different feeling from the crisp cleanness of a clear morning after a storm. Let's head back to Scott, get an update from Karula, and I'll keep trying to find something worth showing you.
So, you can see she is still busy grooming herself. It's been a long session here, making sure she's in immaculate condition, and that she certainly is. She's in fine form, and it actually always boggles me that they managed to keep so clean. We must remember that while we tried to seek shelter during that massive storm last night, she was out here in the elements with not many places to hide. I mean, you can try and seek shelter under some trees or under a fallen down log, but you aren't really ever going to be out of the elements, especially in the conditions we had yesterday with massive rain, wind, lightning, thunder. And I guess that's why she's taking time to make sure that her whole body from tip to toe is clean and in good order after that rain. I guess it may have also helped to kind of clean her coats. Leopards don't like water and will seldomly go into it unless forced to. So this was a kind of compulsory shower that she took last night. Well, very happy to hear that we've got a question from one of our newer viewers. I haven't heard your name before. Apologies if I don't pronounce it correctly. It's a bit of a tricky one. I think it's Nikunj. And Nikunj, great to have you on Safari with us, and thanks for sending your question through. We have been discussing the topic of your question, which is that of predators hunting whilst full-bellied, or when they even have a kill. And Nikunj has noted that she seems to think lion are less inclined or unlikely to hunt while full-bellied, and you're right, Nikunj, they certainly are. Any predator with a full belly is not going to be as motivated and as likely to go off and make a kill. But it's important to remember that if any predator, lion, leopard, wild dog, cheetah, if any of them even are about to explode with a full belly, but are presented with an easy opportunity, they will not pass it by. And depending on the individual, it may even work out that you'll find predators going out and making a bit more of an effort than normal to secure a second kill. That happened last year with lions, with the Birmingham male lions, who are currently feeding on a buffalo carcass, and while they were literally chewing on it, another herd of buffalo stumbled onto the scene, and they ran after those buffalo, managed to pull one down, keep the rest of the herd at bay, and kill it. So that is an example of lions doing it, making a kill when they already are full-bellied or even have a kill, and leopards will do the same things. They will occasionally go out of their way to make a kill, but it will be the predators, the prey animals kind of making that first mistake of presenting the opportunity for the predator to catch them. So it does happen. There's no fixed rules out here in the Kunj. Everything will vary on a daily basis, but your question, I hope, has been answered. Time to give you a bit of a weather report. And still cloudy, 8/8 cloud cover. No sign of any sun coming through, and I don't think there will be any sunshine today. Huge thanks to Ellen Fowler, who follows the leopards of the Sabi Sands incredibly closely and knows some wonderful stories about them. And Ellen has just informed us that this same leopard had 2 kills at this time last year. So thanks, Ellen. It was obviously just before I arrived, but another good example of how both leopard and lion will cash in when the going is good. Well, I can't tear myself away from the sighting. I feel strongly that she is going to eventually go and feed on some impala, but it will only be once she's finished this very long pampering session. And I'm sure you guys will be happy to sit here and try and increase our chances of seeing her jump up into the tree and just be on the move. So lucky to have James out searching for other action. It makes staying here a lot easier. If it was just us, I'd be inclined to try and go out and see what else was happening, but thankfully James is covering those bases for us. Not only James, Brent is also out on tracking team with Jamie. But it sounds like a fairly quiet morning regarding tracks. Not too much going on that I've heard over the radio waves. There actually don't seem to be too many vehicles out this morning, which also makes finding animals in tracks a little bit more difficult because there's less people searching. Hello to Rich King, and Rich King would like to know if this female leopard karula would single out pregnant female impala, as they may be easier to bring down than a female that is not pregnant. And you're right, Rich, there is a strong likelihood that she will, where possible, single out pregnant females, knowing that they're going to be that much slower than one that is not pregnant. So certainly possible, and we'll probably find that the majority of the kills made just before the impalas do start lambing will be the females that are heavily pregnant. Not only heavily pregnant, but also often alone. I don't think that was the case now, Rich, but what female impala will do is they'll move off away from the herd, usually into thick bush where there's good cover, in order to give birth. Now, even though that makes sense in some regards, thick cover is a good place to give birth. It can be a time-consuming process, and to do it out in the open, you'd just be a sitting duck. Whereas off in a thicket, you've got a chance of being unseen. However, there is also chances that if you are seen, you are alone, and therefore lack safety in numbers. You don't have the rest of the herd keeping an eye out for other predators. So that's another reason why impala ewes who are pregnant and just before they calve or as they calve can get caught by leopard. It was the first leopard kill that I actually ever saw was was a baby impala that had just been giving birth to probably minutes before we came onto the scene, and that baby impala and its mother were alone, secluded in some thick bush away from the herd, making it that much easier for the leopard to creep up on them. So some interesting kind of stuff that could unfold in the coming weeks. You must make sure that you tune in as much as possible, Rich, because there's a strong likelihood that we will see some good action with regards to a predator of some description catching baby impalas, wild dogs, maybe this female leopard here, or who knows, maybe a python. Speaking of killing though, James has got some action on his side, and why don't you rush over and enjoy.
Hi everybody, there's a hornbill there. You can see I'm just trying to sneak closer, eating a fruit chaffer, the most beautiful green beetle. I'll try and get a little bit closer to him, but it is the most stunning color. I'll show you a picture of it. He didn't like us having a look at him. Oh, he keeps dropping it. Don't be afraid, hornbill. There, we'll stop here. There you can get an idea of the colour. I'll try and find your picture while we watch him there. And what he's doing is breaking up the exoskeleton. So that's why he hasn't swallowed it straight away. The exoskeleton is hard, very difficult to kind of digest. There we go. He's one of these chaps here. He's one of those things, I think. A regal fruit chaffer. Quite a large beetle with green on his back and not always that much white. Beautiful, beautiful beetle, but unfortunately meeting his end. He could have also been one of those emerald fruit chaffers, but he had a little bit of white on him. Beautiful. Wow. Very nice. We'll just go around the corner and see if we can't see him again. And then what I'm going to do is probably try and get a picture of those lilac-breasted roller chicks who were just near that nest that Scott found the other day. And I'll show that to you after a while. There he is. And you can hear him. If you listen carefully, you might be able to hear him going tick, 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 tick. You forget, you know, how important your teeth are. No, birds don't have teeth, of course, and they can't chew. So if there is anything hard in what they eat, and you see this often with birds that eat fish, they'll hammer away at them like this to kind of crush the bones up so that they don't have to try and digest them. And the keratin in the exoskeleton of that beetle will be almost totally indigestible to that hornbill. So he has to break it up into small pieces before he swallows the beetle. Right, Mike, Karen and Lynn, you have all heard the woodland kingfisher today at the Djuma Dam. I am going to go from this very position. I'm going to scrap the lilac-breasted roller chicks for the moment and head off to Djuma Dam and see if we can't get a view of that woodland kingfisher. I will be most excited to see him. Right, let's leave the fruit chaffer. We're not too far from Djuma Dam now. The fruit chaffer has seen better days, and indeed this will be his last day. Let's go and see if we can find the woodland kingfisher. So we've had multiple confirmed reports. I would have thought this was very late for them to come back. I don't remember them ever coming back this late before. They may have been further north in the Mopani Veld, where there are a greater number of holes in the trees which they like to breed in. Quite late for them, I would have thought. Maybe not. Maybe my memory just fails me. So please keep an eye on the Djuma Dam cam, and those of you who don't know, a woodland kingfisher I think is one of the in bloom color on them. There are 4 species of them that we get here, and I think this is the most magnificent. He's got the most blue on him, very beautiful and very distinctive call, totally unmistakable. So if you're not familiar with him, flick onto the Juma Dam cam maybe and see if he doesn't call again, and then tell me if you can. And I think it's going to be very difficult for you to direct me with sound. But let's see if we can't get a view of the magnificent woodland kingfisher. Mike in Florida, you apparently guessed that today would be the day on the 16th of November that we'd see the woodland kingfisher. Mike, I'm most impressed. Well done. Today is indeed the 16th of November. I'm not sure if would it be the 16th in Florida yet? Another question from Vernie. Vernie, I might need to just point you towards a book for you to have a look at this, but it's a wonderful question. You want to know about the different flying styles. Why do birds fly in different ways? Why is it that a hornbill will flap a few times and then glide down, flap a few times and glide down, whereas doves will fly in a continuous manner, and eagles and vultures will soar, and why the different strategies? Bernie, it's normally got to do with, it's a complex subject that I will probably not do justice to, but I'll give you an idea. It's got to do with energy balance, and it's got to do with hunting strategy, and it's also got to do with the structure of the bird. And if you look at something like an eagle or a vulture, they need to soar because they need to get high so that they can see what they're going to prey on or scavenge off, and then they will dive down if they're an eagle and try and catch whatever it is. But it's inefficient for a heavy bird like that to try and flap around the whole time. They need to use the air and the thermals in order to get an idea of where their prey is and to stay in the air for a long time. So that's why they soar. Energy balance, and also for the eagles and the birds that actually catch things, it gives them the advantage of being able to come from a great height and dive onto whatever they're going to do. I mean, there's a hornbill flying there. You'll see exactly what Vernie means. Flap, 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 glide. Flap, 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 glide. Vernie, I think that's just a very efficient way of moving around. They don't use a lot of energy when they do it, and you'll find that something like a dove, the humble dove, is enormously fast, and they need to be enormously fast because they do fall prey quite often at waterholes to falcons and other birds of prey, and they need to be able to get to the ground fast and go at a great speed, and that they're able to do with their flying strategy. So there's a basic idea of the birds you asked. Of course, then there are the hovering birds, like a black-shouldered kite, which is able to hover in the air, and he can see, that's combined with his ability to see ultraviolet radiation that comes off the uric acid trails left by rats and mice that he likes to eat. Then you get the hovering and the hummingbirds, and that's a tremendously complicated figure-of-8 movement that the wings make and allow them to hover in one place very accurately while they pull the nectar out of plants. So Bernie, lots of different reasons for the different flight patterns, mainly to do with energy balance and catching prey species. Right, there is a hippopotamus in front of us, and I'm going to stop here and turn off and see if we can't hear the woodland kingfisher. Right. Let's have a listen. Now, we're looking at a pan full of water and a hippopotamus, which is not the ideal habitat for that fellow, because obviously he can't fit a girlfriend into that pan and keep her satisfied and keep her in the manner to which she would have become accustomed in her father's pod in a large dam or river. And while we're looking at that pan is pumped, of course, the dam behind it is not. And Jeffrey in Texas, you want to know how much water it would take into that dam behind us there for the catfish to come out of what you termed hibernation. Jeffrey, quite a lot more than we've had. They will need standing water for them to come out of their state of, it's not hibernation, it's something called estivation, which is a very similar state, but it's the word that we use to describe animals that are in that kind of dormant state as a result of dry, not cold. So hibernating animals tend to go into that dormant state because of the cold, and estivating animals do it because it gets very dry. So those estivating catfish will be under the mud there until there is some decent standing water for them to come out into. And who knows when that will be. Now, we were watching that hornbill breaking up the exoskeleton of the fruit chaffer that it was devouring, and Anna Marie, you've asked a question about what bird is it that will smash its prey against the branch in order to break it up. Anna Marie, there are various birds that will do that. I've seen kingfishers doing it with fish to break up the bones. They'll smash them against the branches like that to break up the bones, and then they swallow the fish. I've seen hornbills doing it with beetles, just like that. So there are lots and lots of different birds that will do it. It's mainly the insect eaters, if they pick up a big insect, or the fish eaters. Those fish eaters, remember, for many of them, small birds, and they need to break up the fish a bit and maybe also descale it. I think you find a lot of the kingfishers do it to get the scales off the fish before they swallow it. They don't seem to have the same ability as, say, the storks. There's a hardy-dar ibis coming in. I thought it was an enormous bird of prey. It's actually just a really terrified hardy-dar. So unlike the storks, which are just able to pick out bits of huge fish on their own and then swallow them, as long as they can get them through the throat, they don't seem to make any effort at all to break up the bones. But there are lots of them, Anna Marie, that will break up either the exoskeleton or the bones of their prey by smashing them against the branches. They also, the other reason they do it, of course, is I've seen it done with frogs, and that will be to get first of all, to smash it up, and also to sometimes the frogs and the toads have got toxins in the skin. And by slapping them against the trees and the branches, those toxins will eventually come out, which will make eating a lot more delicious. Now, I cannot hear a woodland kingfisher at the moment, so I'm going to drive gently around this area and see if we can't spot him. Heads bright blue is what we're looking for. Right, while we're driving around looking for this woodland kingfisher, Rich King, you've asked if there's ever been a situation where an unusual relationship between birds has been set up. Now, of course, unusual is quite a euphemistic word. So between species, say between a dove and a hornbill, have they ever fallen in love and tried to produce hybrid horn doves? No, Rich, that hasn't happened, and I'll tell you why it hasn't. When you look at birds, we tend to forget the fact that they are often far more distantly related than some of the mammals that we see. So, the difference between a hornbill and a dove is the same as the difference between a dog and a monkey. So you wouldn't ever find them setting up and trying to mate with each other because they're just so far unrelated. So closer related birds like say the two kingfishers, say a woodland kingfisher and a brown-hooded kingfisher, they come from the same genus. They, in theory, could possibly try and hybridize. I'm not sure if it's ever happened before. I seriously doubt it, but it's not impossible. And that would be the same as a lion and a tiger setting up shop together. And that has happened once or twice in captivity. There are rumors that it's happened in the wild. I'm not convinced myself. But they are very closely related animals. A bit like a horse and a donkey can produce a mule. They're very closely related genetically. Whereas a hornbill and a dove are as far distantly related to each other as we are from a cat, say. Interesting one. Thank you for that, Rich. And we tend to think of birds as being very closely related, especially if we're not kind of biologically minded, simply because they all fly and they look relatively similar. Kind of structure to them. They look more similar. Hornbill and a dove looks much more similar than, say, a monkey and a honey badger. Alright, let's head across to Scott's, get an update with Karula. We'll keep looking around here and see if we can't find that recalcitrant woodland kingfisher. Oh no. Bad news. Bad news, everyone. Before we go across to Scott, just Kebs, can you see the squirrel in there? You see that squirrel there? You got it there? There's a squirrel on this tree. Come to the right of where you are there. Left of where you are. There. Just zoom in straight there. You'll get him. Up a bit. Up a bit. There. That's him there. Now, that squirrel has just come out of the hole in which I planted my leopard orchid. So I suspect my leopard orchid has bit the dust, and I think that's a junior squirrel. I think that's a baby. So I will have to have a look. Okay, not a major tragedy, everybody. We'll get over it eventually. So let's head across to Scott, and I'll mourn the loss of my leopard orchid. See you just now.
Well, terrible news. Poor old James and his leopard orchid. VM and I were wondering what on earth could be this bad news that James was about to reveal, and thankfully it wasn't as bad as a lot of us were probably expecting it to be. He is a joker, old James, and he certainly keeps us entertained at the camp, as I'm sure he does keep you guys entertained whilst on safari. You would have seen that Karula is now flat, fast asleep. She's stopped grooming herself, and likelihood of her going and feeding on this kill in the short future is not promising. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a loop around, see what else we can find, possibly something interesting like the sighting you had with James now with the hornbill and that Schaefer beetle. Sounds awesome. Looking forward to the highlights of that. But that is a perfect example of what we could stumble upon, or something else of a similar nature. So let's move off. I have made sure that Andrew knows that we are very interested in returning her if she does show any signs of life, and he'll call us over the radio if that does in fact happen. But for now, you can see, not looking promising. So we'll just do one loop around. We'll always be 2 minutes away in case something does happen. Let's just increase our chances of seeing what else is going on. Cheers, guys. Enjoy. So some Impala birth guesses have come through already. Lucy is guessing, I think, the 18th. Edward and Lynn think the 19th. Anna Marie and Donna on the 21st, it sounds like. So thank you very much for sending through your guesses. Keep them written down somewhere, and that way we'll have some evidence and just a way of keeping track of whose guesses win, because it'll be very difficult, obviously, to remember everyone's. my guess was the 22nd of November. So really looking forward to seeing those cute baby impala running around, along with a lot of other small herbivores that we will be seeing in the coming months. Not all of them will be born strictly over this period. Animals like buffalo and elephants and giraffe, the animals with longer gestation periods, don't necessarily always give birth in the summer months. They can give birth throughout the year. Hello again to Nikunj, one of our new viewers. And Nikunj noticed Karula's tail flicking from side to side and would like to know what exactly we can read into that in terms of their behavior. Why do they do it? A good question, Nikunj, and a very difficult one to answer precisely. But basically it's an indicator of emotion or excitement, similar to a dog, I guess. When a dog is excited, it wags its tail. When a leopard's excited or anticipating some kind of action, that tail will twitch from side to side. Often when they're hunting or when they're a little bit nervous, that tail will twitch. But it won't be a certain twitch for a certain signal or certain behavior. It's just kind of general twitching and movements for general excitement or anticipation, I guess. So that's all I can read into the leopard's tail's twitching. Something that we can look forward to seeing, Nikunj, is this specific female leopard and others holding her tail up high and almost dangling it back over her head while she walks. I'll point it out when she does it. Not easy for me to reenact while sitting here in the vehicle. Hello, Zebbies. They are such wonderful animals, and I'm glad it didn't take us long to stumble upon some other sights and scenes to share with you. This young foal, interestingly, you can see how it's developing. Its kind of front half is adult, and its back half is foal. And by adults I mean short hair, very black in coloration. By foal I mean slightly longer, more fluffy fur and more brown in coloration. So this one is slowly developing into an adult. Yes, you. Good morning. You can see the female at the back, right? Look at how much her stomach's protruding. Oh, as I said that, the other one popped into view, and let's see. Oh no, that must be the stallion. Yeah, that's the stallion. He's certainly not pregnant. And it's the two females at the back are the adults, and it could be their two foals from last year in the foreground. Look at that one at the back now. You can see her big belly as she moves into the opening. As with the other one now, very, very heavily pregnant. So in the coming weeks, guys, we're going to be seeing some tiny zebra foals. I cannot wait. They are one of the cutest of the newborn animals that we are going to be seeing. Let's see if we can get you a few more views. The bush is a little bit thick here, but we'll try and make a plan. I don't think they're going to be hanging around. Off they go. What a great scene, a long line of zebras heading off into the unknown. Thankfully, zebras, there's no lions around that we know of, so you're going to have a stress-free day. such awesome news has just come through over the radio. James has heard a woodlands kingfisher, finally! And he is now trying to track it down. So, exciting prospects. We've been talking about the arrival of the woodlands kingfisher. A lot of you would have put down dates for that. I don't remember if I actually committed to a date, or if I did, I've certainly forgotten what it was. If any of you can remember, please share that with us. But a lot of you would have had guesses as to when the first woodlands kingfisher will be seen. And it could well be this morning, so if today was your day, best you cross fingers for James. That's great news. They are such pretty birds, and what I'll do is I'll actually get the call out for you and attempt to play it for you, just so you know what sound James has heard. It's a shrill chick. Is my impersonation, but I'm going to use my fancy new bird app to to get you this call ready. There we go. Another one. So that's the call that James has heard. And it's a beautiful call of the summer months. Quite similar to their cousin, the grey-headed kingfisher. And the grey-headed kingfisher is really pretty, and its call goes something like this. It's kind of like the end portion of the woodlands kingfisher's call. Similar kind of shrill. And what I must now do is stop that and show you both of those birds. The grey-headed. This picture doesn't do it near as the real thing. Very, very pretty though. I love the dark blue at the base of their wings and tail. So that's the grey-headed kingfisher, also migratory, also just returned back from central parts of Africa. I saw two the other day. And this is the woodlands kingfisher here. Again, the picture doesn't do it justice. This blue coloration is more electric turquoise in real life. So that is what James is looking for, and hopefully he will find it. Very, very pretty. And interesting how some of the migratory birds arrived months ago, but others are still only making their way. So I'm not sure if James has updated you on the plans for the morning, but Jamie is going to be doing a drive for some schools, I think here in South Africa. I don't know the finer details, but she's going to be taking over this vehicle at 7:30, so 25 more minutes for me, and she's going to be doing a drive, I think, from 8 until 9:30. So you will be able to tune in for a bit of extra safari action. She will be catering specifically for these school kids, but would love you guys to join in on the adventure with her. So that's good news for all of you, a bit of a surprise edition. But it does mean I've only got 25 minutes more of safari with you. James is busy trying to call this woodlands kingfisher, and he would like you to jump on board with him. Good luck, guys. I hope you find it.
Now, I heard everybody. I did actually hear the woodland kingfisher. So I do believe all of you now. He was in this tree while I was looking for my leopard orchid, which has been devoured by that beastly squirrel. And what I'm trying to do now is call it with my telephone app that has got the bird call. Now, I've thus far been totally unsuccessful. Right, now, here we shall play the thing again. That's my phone, not the real bird. Alas, this bird is not being... Can't tell whether that was on my phone or if that was live. No response. They are not to be conned, these fellows. Anyway, we'll keep driving around here and we'll see if we can't spot him somewhere along the way. So my poor little leopard orchid, I'm afraid, has been devoured by a squirrel. It is now no more than a husk, and unfortunately we will have to try and plant another one and de-squirrel it. And as you say, tragic circumstances, leopard killed by squirrel. Yes, exactly. I do not know. Where you got this from, which particular part of the world's great superstitions this comes from, but you say the fact that the squirrel has eaten my leopard orchid means another 7 years of a bachelorhood. I suppose it comes from the fact that the leopard orchid can be used as a love potion out here. Lucy, all I can say is one can only hope. One can only hope. 7 more years of bachelorhood, well, probably wouldn't be too bad. We're going to drive slowly down the drainage line. We'll see if we can't pick him up. For those of you perhaps new and haven't heard the story, the reference with the leopard orchid is that if you eat the canes that the leaves grow on, they're kind of succulent, like sort of small sugar canes. That's what they look like. They certainly don't taste like that. But if you suck those on the full moon and say the name of the one you want at midnight, she will immediately start thinking of you. And as I've said before, despite having recited the name of Scarlett Johansson many, many times at midnight while sucking on the disgusting cane of a leopard orchid, she has yet to contact me via Twitter, Facebook, telephone, or any other medium of which I'm aware. Okay, quickly, let's go across to Scott. He's got a snake.
Can you believe it? Look at how pretty this little snake is. It's just swallowed a kill. I'm not sure what it is. Look at how full its throat is. And I'm actually not too sure what snake this is. I'm battling to work out. It's throwing me off the fact that it's just swallowed something literally seconds ago. To me it looks like it could be an egg eater, so that could be an egg that it swallowed, but it doesn't make sense. It's not round enough. No, it's certainly not round enough to be an egg. So maybe it's a little night adder. And this is incredible. We're going to actually be able to monitor whatever it has swallowed slowly moving down its stomach. And we must have just missed that final little portion of the animal that it swallowed by seconds. Now you can see the very distinctive kind of arrows on its head facing forward. That's what indicates to me that it could be either a night adder or an egg eater, but its body shape is leaning towards, for me, more egg-eaterish, as opposed to night adder-ish. The colorations are similar, but egg eaters have got a more slender build than the night adders, which are slightly thicker. Now what I can do is just reposition ever so slightly, because when identifying snakes it's very important to just keep on it, please, Rian. To look at their pupils. Yeah, it's trying to swallow as effectively as possible now. Holding its head up higher. I don't want to frustrate it, because snakes will regurgitate prey in order to lighten their load. As I was saying, that if you can see its pupils, look very closely, and they either have a horizontal pupil or a vertical pupil, or maybe sometimes just a round pupil, and that helps in distinguishing what's what. Look at how beautiful its colorations are. Now what could happen is that birds could come and mob this. It's vulnerable out in the open here, and I can just hear some lilac-breasted rollers calling around us. Not only will they mob and attack the snake, but the other birds could even catch and kill it. And I've just seen James nearby. I'm going to ask him to come and have a closer look, because he might be able to positively identify this snake correctly. James, do you want to come and have a closer look here? I need a second opinion on the species. Now what's interesting about how the snake's moving is that it's not really, it is kind of slithering, but you'll see how it's moving in an, I suppose that is a very serpentine action, which also shows us that it's probably an egg eater. Adders will often move in a rectilinear or caterpillar-like motion. And that will help us to distinguish between the two species. Now, if this is in fact an egg eater, Lisa would like to know if it would have crushed the egg. And yes, Lisa, it would certainly have crushed the egg, but interestingly, it's once the whole egg is inside the mouth of the snake, usually, and then there's kind of two protrusions, tooth-like protrusions at the back of the head, or the back of the mouth, that will puncture that egg as it passes through into the stomach. So it won't be able to very easily crack open the egg just by closing its mouth. It's got those two little protrusions that create a puncture into the egg, and once the egg is punctured, it becomes easier to crush. And that's why now, like most predators, even though an egg eater may predominantly enjoy feeding on eggs, it may not strictly feed only on eggs, and it may have fed on something else. I'm going to try and reposition again. And thank you very much, Robin in Maryland, for letting us know that you think it is an egg eater, the rhombic egg eater, more specifically, and that is the egg eater that we do get in this area. Look at its little forked tongue there, getting probed out. And it'll be testing the wind. It'll gather huge amounts of information from that little tongue. And we sadly can't get you any closer in with the camera that is on the vehicle. VM's at full zoom. Those are some lilac-breasted rollers having an argument around us. Thank you very much for confirming that you think it is the rhombic egg eater. I think you are right. It's a tiny little snake. Just to give you an idea, it's probably only 20 centimeters in length, which is about 7 inches. It really would be wonderful to know what it had swallowed and why it had swallowed it out in the open. That's what I don't understand. The fact that it's not in a likely place to find an egg and swallow it, but it looks like it has very recently swallowed whatever it has. So if anybody could let us know if these egg eaters will feed strictly on eggs, which I don't think is the case. I'm guessing that they may well feed on other animals. As you know, James is here and he's got a much better view of the snake than us, or a different angle at least, so we're going to pop you across on for a slightly different view.
So, very grateful that Scott managed to find me something to look at, which is excellent. Thank you, Scott, for that. I'm in two minds as well. Too skinny to be a night adder, so I would go with egg eater on this. The one very distinguishing mark or part of an egg eater, which I can't get from this angle, is the bluntness of the nose. How blunt its nose is. They should have a pretty blunt nose, as opposed to that kind of. The night adder does have a fairly diamond-shaped head, in my experience.
It looks blunt from here, James.
Okay. And you've confirmed that the adder has a head shaped like a spade, and Scott reckons from his angle that this has got a fairly blunt head. So let's go with egg eater, and as long as we're all in agreement, it doesn't really matter, does it? Yeah, I think he's too skinny to be an adder. Those adders are quite fat little snakes. They don't tend to have that length tail on them either. What a magnificent sighting. Gee whiz. Oh, there you can see him moving now. Sticking his tongue out. And I think that pinkish tinge on his throat is probably also quite distinctive, and possibly a flowing, I don't know, in fact I don't know what it would be. Yeah, I would definitely go with egg eater on this one. It does look very painful to have that stuck in your throat though, doesn't it? That's a really lovely angle. So we're sitting probably about 2.5 meters, so about 10 feet from him. And we don't want to get too much closer because I'm sure Scott's told you he will disgorge that thing onto the ground and scuttle off. But as Scott says, it's very odd that he or she is sitting there in the middle of the road, totally exposed. I mean, were a raptorous bird to come past here, or a slender mongoose, I think that snake would be. And also the temperature won't be helping the snake. Of course, they are ectothermic, which means they're cold-blooded, and that means that they will really struggle on a day like the ambient temperature to be high for them to function fully. And on a cold day like this, they will struggle to move around a lot because they don't make any heat of their own. And Janine, a very nice question. Are they venomous? They certainly are not poisonous. If you were to eat that snake, you would be perfectly healthy. You would probably be quite happy, actually. But are they venomous? No, an egg eater is not a venomous snake. Now, this is interesting. He's lifting his head up, smelling. That's what that tongue is doing. It's taking little particles of air, pushing them up into a hole in the top of the top palate, which is a channel to a very sensitive organ called the organ of Jacobson. And that will help this little snake interpret what it is that they're looking for. You know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to try and frighten it, but what I'm going to do is I don't think you've got an idea of the size of the snake. I'm going to go and stand next to it, or I'm going to stand behind it. I don't think it will affect the snake. And you can just get an idea of the size. So if you can zoom out a bit, Tebs, yeah, just zoom right out, and I'm just going to walk around quite a long distance away from it, and you'll just get an idea of my feet as they go past it. I'm not going to frighten him at all, but you'll get an idea of the size. Have you got my feet?
Yeah.
And the snake. So there you can see his size. So he looks probably a bit bigger on screen when you fully zoomed into him than he is in reality. So he's maybe a foot long. He's maybe just a foot long. Beautiful little snake. Yeah, definitely when I got close like that, on closer inspection, there's no way this is a night owl. I'm sure it's an egg eater. And it looks like, when you look at him on full zoom and through the binoculars, it looks like he swallowed something the size of a chicken egg. But in fact, it's probably something the size of a very small robin's egg or a weaver's egg. All right, let's head across to Scott. He's going to say goodbye to you. And I will explain what Jamie's going to be doing a little bit later.
Welcome back. We're just getting into position here with Kirill again. How awesome was that little snake? And always nice to be able to actually share sightings with the other vehicle. So that was another extra added bonus, and also great for you guys because you get more than one view. Now, we, like I say, have just listened to, and I guess she is looking in the direction of that tree with the kill in it, but not quite convinced that she's ready for breakfast yet. I'm guessing this afternoon may be our time then to get lucky, or who knows, maybe with Jamie's extended drive this morning you may get lucky. I'm guessing she will feed during the course of the day, but failing that this evening, I'm confident we will get you some great views of her up in the tree. So if you do have to finish your safari at the regular time this morning, make sure to try and tune in for the sunset safari. There's bound to be some great leopard action, and who knows what else will be happening. As I said earlier, I am going to be finishing the safari a little bit earlier than normal this morning because I need to get Jamie this vehicle, and she's going to be doing an extended drive until 9:30, so an extra hour and a half of drive this morning. It'll just be her out though, so give her some support if you can stay awake, if you're in different time zones to us, or if it suits you and it's early in the morning, well, just enjoy taking more time off work if you are supposed to be working today, I guess. Thank you so much for all your help and contributions to the safari. Well done to VM on camera, to Louise and Nikki in the final control room. We're going to send you back to James, and I look forward to catching up on the sunset safari.
So we're still sitting with this funny little snake, and it is a marvelous little creature, but I think really struggling in this cold weather. I think the temperature with this wind has probably dropped another 4 degrees or so since we began, and I would put the ambient temperature here with this wind at a roughly, I wouldn't say much more than 10 to 14 degrees Celsius, and that will make it very difficult for a snake to move. They have to have heat, and they need the sun in order to fire up their metabolisms and help them to move along. And I think that's why it's moving so incredibly slowly. And it's a feeling that we really can't understand as mammals, where we produce our own heat. No matter how cold you feel, your inner core temperature hardly changes at all. And it means that you can go from 0 to sprinting speed very quickly. And the ambient temperature's got nothing to do with how fast you're able to do that. This snake, however, for it to make the effort to get to the next bush where it'll be able to find some shelter, it's really going to take an enormous effort. I'm just calling in. There's another drive coming past us here, and they'll be fascinated to look at this little snake. It's a little snake. Can you see it there? Can you see it?
Yes.
We think it's an egg eater with a little robin's egg or something stuck in its throat, but I don't think it can move because it's so cold. It's really kind of oozing along the road. Alright, everybody, we're going to head off and have a look at Karula. That's mainly because I haven't seen her today, and I feel that you should share her with me. And Tevs also wants to see Karula. Enjoy it. James Bear, you want to know how big the snake is? The snake is just short of a foot, so I'd say roughly that big. Just short of a foot. So not very large at all. And it's an interesting point, because to have found that snake in that slightly odd area, away from any kind of cover, is slightly bizarre. And Brandy, you're suggesting maybe that it was dropped by a bird. I think it's not impossible. I don't think that's a bad idea at all. It could well be that it was dropped there by a bird. It just didn't look very injured. I think it's eaten too much, to be honest, and that it's so cold now, and it's got so much colder during the course of the morning that it really is going to struggle to get out of there. But it could have been dropped by a bird. Now, we've got to try and find Karula. We know she's in a jackalberry tree around here. And I only know of one or two I can see the expired antelope hanging in the boughs. So I'm just going to get Tebs to point the camera at the impala, which is of course is something you'd be looking out for if you were walking. You've all seen that today, of course, and that I haven't. And Terry, in New Zealand, while we're looking at that, you say you've heard that if we touch a snake, they won't mate with each other because there's the scent of the oils on our hands that will leave a residue on the snake's skin. Terry, I think you'll find that if you were to handle a snake quite extensively, yes, that may well have an effect on its ability to mate. It may well, remember, we smell like predators to just about anything out here, so it could well be the case that if you were to touch, say, a snake and then it came across a potential mate, that mate might smell predator on it, and that would definitely be a bad thing for the prospective lovers. But I think that it wouldn't be permanent. I think that, the scent of us would be washed off pretty quickly. Now, if anyone can tell me where the leopard is, that would be marvelous. Oh, Tebs has spotted her. She's nowhere near the kill. Thank you, Tebs. She's I think as she has been for much of the morning, she's been flat on her back. So we'll have a quick look here and guide Jamie in. Hello, Karula. How are you? So I think that's where she's been sat for most of the morning, isn't it? She does seem to be getting paler and paler as the days go on. And I strongly suspect that her extensive wanderings over the course of the last week have been because she is in fact looking for a mate again, and I wonder if Tingana has failed to impregnate her yet again. Very lovely. We won't spend too long here. We'll just spend a few minutes here, enjoy the beauty of the leopard, and then we'll probably have a look at the kill. And then we'll drive around, I think, back to the Juma Dam and see if we can't start. Now, so Jamie's little show that she's going to be doing, I think, is so exciting. It's just tremendous. There's a school in Johannesburg, a very sort of famous old Johannesburg school called Rodin School for Girls, and my sister went there actually. And Jamie also went there, and they're grade 1 and grade 2 children, so 7 and 8-year-old little girls are to whom the show is going to be directed. And you are obviously welcome to carry on watching. There will be no change in the actual website, so you just keep watching if you want to watch it, but just bear in mind that it will be directed at very young children. So very exciting stuff. I think you'll find it tremendously entertaining, and I just think that this kind of thing for schools, and I know that there are a few schools, especially in the States, that watch us during the afternoon drives, and I think it's just a wonderful way to get kids enthralled in the wilderness and in conservation especially, because without children's buy-in, of course, our already threatened wilderness areas will become even more so. All right, let's just do a quick turn around the tree there and have a look. I don't think we need to wait here for Jamie. I think she'll be more than capable of finding this leopard. I don't think she's going anywhere at all. And then we'll press on, and let's just see if we can't have one last gander at that woodland kingfisher. Thank you, Julia. In Houston, you say there is an impala fetus in the tree as well. That's a bit grim, but yes, very interesting. And of course, any impala ewe that is killed now will almost inevitably, if she's an adult, she will have the same thing. So not a great beginning to life for this little impala. Annie, in British Columbia, you are exactly correct in your guess that, you see that, Ted? You're exactly correct in your guess that leopards will absolutely keep a cache of kills if they can kill more than one. I've seen that with baboons. And you'll see it probably once or twice during the course of the lambing season for the impalas, where the youngsters are so easy to kill that one or two of them may well end up in a kind of cache. So that's a fairly grim picture of what's befallen the impala. And quite typically the leopard has gone for the backside first. Ah well, leopard's got to eat. And there's the fetus. I mean, that could not have been more than a week, maybe 2, from full term. Little thing. Yeah. Alrighty, let's move on from here, and site of carnage. And we'll go back down towards the Juma Dam and see if we can't find that woodland kingfisher. And the soil is beautifully wet here now. An enormous storm last night. I would say probably about 20 millimeters of rain, so almost an inch, which for us is quite a lot. It may have even been more than that actually, maybe 25, maybe a full inch. And that will have created a beautiful layer, subsurface layer of water for the grasses to start growing out of. And Joel, before I get on to your question, we did spend some time yesterday digging trenches in our little camp because the water did threaten to inundate us at various stages, and that dovetails neatly, Joel, with your question about whether or not hyena dens and other dens get flooded. Joel, it's highly unlikely. You know, they're normally in termite mounds. Termite mounds are A, on very well-drained soil, and B, they're normally on sort of slopes. So we'll have a look at this termite mound and I'll show you what I mean. So this termite mound over here, for example, sits on a slope on pretty well-drained soils, and I'll tell you what, I'll show you where the den would normally be, and that might help. So normally what you'd have is an aardvark that dug a hole in an area like this, and it's upslope, and so it's highly unlikely that water would ever collect sufficiently to get into a hole that was at my feet here. Likewise, if they dug a hole the other side of the termite mound, the water would just go around it like that. I would say there's the odd chance that it's possible that flooding could take place in a termite mound like that, but I'd say, Joel, it's highly unlikely, especially, certainly not for wild dogs, because they, of course, give birth in the winter time, and unless there was a seriously odd weather pattern that came through, there would be no water at all during the time when the wild dogs give birth. Chilly out here, I must say. Now, we've just been chatting about that snake and the egg eaters, and Elena, I know someone asked Scott whether egg eaters only eat eggs, and Elena, in California, you say that you've done some research and they do only eat eggs. The rhombic egg eater only eats eggs, and you say maybe a lapwing egg. Now, a lapwing is a ground nesting bird, as you pointed out, and is it possible that it could be a lapwing egg. I think it could well be. A lapwing egg to me, though, looks a bit big. That snake was small, and its throat was about that wide. So it's possible that could be a lapwing egg, but I think a lapwing egg is a little bit large for that. So I would say it was something smaller, maybe even a robin or a weaver, little eggs. And I think that snake, although it was on the ground, could well have collected the egg from somewhere else. We're doing another turn around here. And Remay, I don't really know how long it will take for that snake to digest the egg, but I think once the shell is cracked, it'll disappear pretty quickly. The calcium in the egg will obviously take a little bit longer than the albumin and the yolk. Right, let's have another listen here, and we'll just watch these two Birchall starlings while we're waiting. Oh, look at that. One of them's a youngster. One of them's a little one. They grow so fast, these birds. And that one there is a youngster. Shorter tail than the adult. Blacker head. And it was begging. It is incredible. It's probably about a month old, maybe even less. There's a whole little family of them. I think there's a clutch of recently fledged Birchall starlings. There's an adult in the tree there. It's now flying off. Let me just move around a little bit. See if we can't get a nice look. I am, of course, hoping to hear the woodland kingfisher again here. I heard him call once, and then he ceased. Oh, a lot of little Birchall starlings in here. They must have had a nest around here somewhere. We'll just go around so that Tibbs can get a proper picture of them. There we go. They're just sitting underneath the Juma Dam cam now. I wonder if they don't have a nest around there. So they nest in tree holes. I think I've just found the nest. Tibbs, let's go around the front here. Oh, nasty hole in the ground. Excuse me getting in the way of the Juma Dam cam, but these things must be done every so often. I spotted a hole in the tree up there, but I don't think there is one actually. Wonderful to see these birds breeding and then developing, and it's a very special time of year, this. Little birds coming out all over the place and new migrants coming in every day, like that sandpiper we had today, the wood sandpiper. Okay, let's head on. The woodland kingfisher clearly does not want to see me today, which I think is extremely selfish of it. But, I'm sure there'll be others. Susan, I'm very sorry to tell you that it's not a good time for your request. Susan, you said I'd show you an African bullfrog with a tooth in its mouth after the rain. Yeah, I haven't seen any now. They'll come out more at night and possibly also when there's a bit more heat in the air. Remember, they're also ectothermic, so very little heat around the place at the moment, so they'll struggle to move. So this wouldn't be a great frog time. But that said, we may be lucky. But I think the best time is going to be when it heats up a little bit, and especially when the termite alates start to fly out of the mounds. You often find bullfrogs then lurking around there. I'm just looking at a hornbill. What's this hornbill, Kebs? He's carrying something and he's sitting on a dead tree. So Susan, I don't think bullfrogs today, but when it heats up and the termite alates start to fly, yes, definitely. Oh, he's got a nest here. No, he doesn't. Every time I see a hornbill carrying anything at the moment, I'm still watching him. I think there's, I don't know. There may be a nest in that tree. Every time you see any back across the dam wall and then see. This is where I heard the bird calling. It was definitely husk. That is my leopard orchid. As I was saying earlier, not a very crisp morning, a really kind of heavy atmosphere. The clouds are low and they're moving at quite a speed. Come on, kingfisher, don't let me down. Now, for those of you who perhaps don't know, many of the kingfishers, especially here, don't in fact eat fish. And the woodland kingfisher that we're looking for is one of those. So the kingfishers that we get here are the brown-hooded, the malachite, the pygmy, the woodland, the striped, and the grey-hooded, and the pied. And of those, only the pied, the malachite, and I think maybe the grey-hooded eat fish as a matter of course. The rest of them are fairly sort of voracious eaters of just about anything that has meat in it, and they will eat. So they will eat fish if they happen to be lying around the place, but they don't hunt for fish like the malachite and the pygmy, not pygmy, the malachite and the pied, which hover above the water and then dive down and catch the fish. It's an amazing thing to see. But certainly a lot of them will eat frogs. And I know I've seen woodland eating frogs, but they also will eat many insects and other kinds of protein-rich foods. Not much in the way of seed or grass eaters are the kingfishers with their spear-like beaks. Wise, Juma does tend to be a little bit on the poor side. So we don't often see monkeys, we hardly ever see baboons. Lane in Johannesburg, you'd like to know why. I suspect, Lane, you've been to many reserves where baboons... Lane, I'm not entirely sure. I think the main reason has probably got to do with the lack of roosting sites. So they do come through here every so often. But we don't have a major river running through the reserve, which means that large fig trees and big jackalberry trees, there's the odd big jackalberry, but not a huge number. Those sorts of trees don't occur here. because of that, there are not very obvious roosting sites for baboons. They could well go down to the Sand River or be closer to the Sand River or the Manyeleti River, which is off to the west of us, where there are huge trees that they can roost in at night. So I suspect it's got quite a lot to do with the safety of it. I also think, though, when the jackalberries start to fruit here, that we will see the odd troop of baboons coming through. But I think they will be very transient. I don't think they're going to hang around for too long. Very nice question, that. Thank you. One of the, of course, for many people, the concept of a creepy crawly is a ubiquitous thing that means anything that doesn't have fur on it, and it terrifies the wits out of you. And certainly, while invertebrates are very fascinating to me, the centipede, which Barbara you're asking about, is certainly something that gives me the heebie-jeebies, even though I've been out here for so long. A centipede, with its, I don't know, the way it moves, and it's kind of they do have a really pretty nasty bite. They give me the heebies too, and Barbara, we do get them here. Not that many of them, but they are around. And possibly my least favorite of the invertebrates. Scuttling about. Millipedes, of course, are very, very common, and the millipede is totally unrelated to the centipede. And they, of course, have many hundreds of legs. Well, a centipede doesn't normally have 100 legs at all. So we're just coming down through now a drainage line or dry riverbed, and what we'll do is it's right in front of the camp, in front of Vuatela camp. But Tibbs, if you can just kind of sweep the camera past here, I'll show you what I meant by the lack of roosting sites. So there are some tall trees here, but none of them on the scale of those big fig trees or leadwood trees or enormous jackalberries that grow on some of the drainage lines and dry riverbeds, and indeed the perennial Sand River that's quite close to this area. So I think that is the major reason that we don't have resident troops of baboons here at Djuma. Wonderful sound there of the orange-breasted bushshrike. Such a lovely peaceful sound of the morning. But this morning is not heating up. And you would find if the sun popped out, the volume of birdsong would increase exponentially. But right now it's a very kind of a calm, well, not quite chamber music. I used the analogy of chamber music for the winter, but it's certainly not everybody in the orchestra is playing at the moment. Dave in Texas, you're a very observant fellow, obviously, and you want to know what the button is that I'm pushing behind the steering wheel every time we start the car. It is on this thing, and it's called an immobilizer, which is supposed to stop the car and stop thieves taking your car. Now, of course, there are many things about the Land Rover that are, shall we say, illogical at best and insane at worst. One of them on this particular model of the car is this immobilizer, which is wonderful if you live in a ghetto and don't want your car stolen. It's entirely pointless here at Djuma, though. However, in order to remove it, apparently one has to expend the same amount of effort as one might building a new space station, taking the car apart, removing the various bits and pieces of the immobilizer, and so it's actually impossible to take out. So we just make do with it, and we have to press the button every time you turn the car off. It turns itself on again, so you push the button before you drive off. I think we have BMW to thank for that. This is the BMW engine in this car. Same engine you find in a 328i, as far as I remember. An old one, not a new one. Right, well, I think that's going to be it from me, everybody. Jamie is standing by to take over, and please enjoy her presentation with the kids. I think it's going to be a really fascinating time, especially hearing the interaction that will come from them. Young minds in the bush, and we have them watching our regular drives, are just a very special way to enjoy it. So thank you, Tibbs, for your efforts today. Thank you to Louise, who's back in the final control. I can't remember who else is there, but all the girls are on site now. Nikki and Tara and Kirsty. Nikki is the other one doing the job at the moment. And a big thanks, of course, to Scott and Vian. And we will see you later this afternoon. Have a wonderful day or evening wherever you happen to find yourself in the world. Bye-bye.